Welcome everyone. I am Mr. Goldenbaum, and this is Supremacy 1914. Now, let's get straight into the action. We've had a lot of developments since our last recording. We are on day number 4, good ways away until day number 5. Day number 5 isn't going to be a huge tick. Day number 6 will be a game changer, since that's when factories will first become available and we will start to hit that mid-game industrialization where we're going to transition from armored cars and cavalry into artillery, into cruisers, and kind of leading up to tanks, artillery guns. Though I say artillery guns, we're not going to get that far. Regardless, we're back from day number 4. Now, the game is going to be decided in the next couple of hours. There's a lot going on all fronts. Overall, I'd say we're holding the advantage on each one of the fronts, but there's some big engagements going on here. So first, let us take a look at the remaining Austrian forces sitting in Szeged over here. We have the Moroccan forces being led by Hank and Orhan, totaling almost 120,000 troops with 3 armored cars, with a good hit point pool of about 1,800, with the charge being led by the Turkish forces with a hit point pool of 1,253, a good amount of infantry, 2 cavalry, 2 armored cars, and a level 10 Lawrence of Arabia, which is just an amazing hero. 30% movement boost, 15 additional infantry that spawned with him, and he's got a really nice 175% attack boost. So that's why he's going to hit these forces way sooner than the Moroccans. Now, ideally, all of these troops would have attacked at the same time, but the problem is that the same forces you see here from Morocco and Turkey were trying to pin this exact Austrian army over here in Belgrade, and unfortunately, they were not able to catch them in time. The forces by Lawrence were not able to catch them in time, and they retreated all the way to Szeged, so it's kind of delayed this confrontation. Now, Austria could still back out at the last moment. The travel distances in this province are more beneficial to Austria, meaning that he will be able to run away in time before the Turkish forces secure this province, and by capturing the province, friendly units move faster, enemy units move slower, but it would not be enough. Now, enough of the talk of the travel distances. You had all the Austrian troops that were congregating in this area, and a few additional forces, I think, have been trickling in. So our forces have a hit point pool totaling about 3,070. Meanwhile, the enemy forces have a pool of about 1,285. Unfortunately, since there's multiple units involved, we can't look at the individual offensive and defensive statistics. So this was going to be a very, very close fight with all of these additional forces trickling in. And I say trickling in, but you can clearly see them moving away from the front line. It appears that Russia has made a split-second decision, and all of these troops that were sitting here in their eastern provinces and all of these troops that they probably had funneling in from the north here in Russia, the northeast, I should say, have all turned around. This would have been a huge boost of at least, kind of being a little generous here, an additional 618 in hit points with 2 armored cars that are no longer going to be reinforcing this province. This is a huge win for us. If the Austrian army does not move within the next hour, this entire force is going to be obliterated. We have a 9,000 stack of troops reinforcing Szeged, though I would imagine as they arrive at the province, they will turn around and continue to retreat into the east. It seems like his strategy will be to hold either these remaining Austrian provinces on the outskirts or retreating deeper into core Russian territory. Potentially there's some fortifications here. There's an additional building. Could be another building in Kiev, but it looks like he's on the full-on retreat trying to defend his core territory. But unfortunately, he's leaving his ally out to dry. A second crucial engagement that's about to take place is the siege and assault of Vienna. We have the Italian forces totaling 45,000 infantry with some additional cavalry and armored cars being led by Allenby with a really good attack damage pool, and a nice hit point pool that will be hitting Vienna. Now, the Russians could have potentially reinforced this area, but they are traveling east. All the troops that Austria is going to be able to muster here are about 230. Now, I have Orhan doing who knows what, just trying to... The original goal with Orhan kind of doing his stuff is try to get some of these other Russian troops to commit to the Vienna defense opposed to Szeged or over here in the west. I kind of want to get rid of the hero, so at some point I probably will just kind of dedicate to the attack to hopefully pin some of these soldiers, increasing the casualties that will be suffered by Austria. But should we take this province from Vienna, sack the capital, Italy's going to get a nice resource boost. The morale of all of these Austrian provinces will go down, and as a result, with each one of the day ticks, with the morale going down, the production of any additional buildings will slow down, the recruitment of infantry will slow down, and it's going to severely cripple his economy, essentially taking one player out of the game. Now, that's two significant engagements taking place. There is a third. We have the French forces being led by a level 8 Lawrence of Arabia, giving them a nice movement speed bonus and a hefty 150% attack bonus, giving them some really good offensive stats going up against the defenses here in Germany, in Munich. Now, Germany is building a fortification, though that fortification will certainly not pass the halfway point, which I believe is the requirement for this protection bonus to start activating, which means that the fortification is not going to provide any bonuses, and this Johann Brigade still has 14 hours before they're able to complete the trench. So that is not going to help at all. You have the defenses here led by Orhan having a nice armored car boost here for the defense of 16%, which is nice coupled with 2 armored cars, but sadly, this will not be enough. If you look at his defensive stats, we have 166. You have Lawrence here at 187 with hit points of 1256. On Orhan's end, he's got 780. So I just don't think that Orhan has enough hit points to be able to survive this assault. Now, we do have some additional German forces sitting in Stuttgart here in Innsbruck. The Italians are putting pressure on this specific province, so the Germans do not reinforce Munich. And our forces, led by a level 3 Hank, which is absolutely terrible, only 100% attack boost and just a little bit of a movement speed boost, are putting pressure on Stuttgart. Originally, Germany was shifting some of his soldiers over to the east, but as our forces were nearing his province of Stuttgart, he made the snap decision to stop midway and reinforce this province, which I'd say was probably the wrong decision in this situation. He may have turned the tide of the engagement in Munich, and I suppose he still has a chance. By leaving his forces here, we'll secure the win in Munich, capture this province with these really long travel distances, so very safe from any counterattacks. But we won't get Stuttgart. Sure, you can say that this province here with the double would be a more strategic province, and I would agree, but it's got the fortification, so even committing to a small force that can be quickly reinforced here by Strasbourg may spell the end of our army and potentially kind of collapse the front in this area. So I'm perfectly content with putting pressure on this province. Though Germany here, I really think he should have shifted soldiers here out of Innsbruck. He could have left 25,000, and that would have been sufficient with a level 3 fortification to survive this 45,000 Italian army. Unfortunately for him, the level 3 fortification had not finished, so we know exactly how many troops are in here. If he left with the whole army, obviously the Italians then can march right in and capture this strategic province. So the Italian and Turkish front have been crazy, but moving up over here into the north, you have these Swedish soldiers also continuing to press and attack against the French. So they are traveling through the neutral country of Belgium. I'm not sure if he has the right of way at this stage. We don't have any spies, and we haven't really seen him cross any of these territories. We know the French do, and the French played their hand early on into the war, which, sure, maybe he can't use this advantage right now, but by doing so, he forced the Germans to have to reinforce both Cologne and Hanover here in their western side with additional fortifications and troops. You had the Swedish troops stationed here for a good while, along with the forces that were sitting in Hanover here from the British. Though I think the British here are kind of too little too late, so sure, they can do whatever they want to do, not helping really any of these key fronts and engagements. But the Swedish could potentially, even if they don't have right of way, hit Antwerp and proceed to capture this northern territory here from France and put pressure on the capital. We will be reinforcing with an additional 10 stack that would bring our hit point pool to about 182. Oh, that's of our troops. You add that to the 612, we're kind of nearing 800 at that point, which is higher than the forces here of Hank. Not to mention, he will suffer some casualties going through the neutral country. We will have a partial fortification built at some point. Oh, it looks like we're already getting 15% without it being 50%. So I was wrong on that end. It must be somewhere around 25% where you start getting some defensive bonuses. This province I'm less concerned with, since he would have to hit Brussels and suffer heavy casualties, though we do have some of our reinforcements in the west coming in to reinforce that province. The coast off of Britain has been relatively quiet. We have been able to sink a few ships here and there of the British. We are actually catching some of the British troops that were attempting to land in Britain. Looks like he unfortunately was not able to react in time. So we will be able to eliminate this stack of 3,000 soldiers, ideally without losing any soldiers of our own. The British could have reacted and sent some additional reinforcements, which leads me to believe that they are not active at this time. If I were to attempt to land in Cardiff, I don't know if we would have enough time. We'll still have a few ticks to this battle, potentially an additional 3 hours. Plus, we would have to go through the disembarkment stage before we can travel this tiny distance. So what we're going to do is actually pull our forces back into Brest. They probably won't make it there in time, but I want to get out of range of these additional British troops. They could be chasing me, or they could just be shifting some forces over here into the east, since it looks like he was trying to move additional soldiers into Germany, though he's turning around now. That's fine. I think overall the operations in Britain continue to be a huge success. He's dumped a ton of resources into building up some of these southern coastal provinces. I haven't made any kind of serious attempt to land, and yet he has almost his entire army sitting on the British Isles. Jeez, I caught a transport on accident. Let me do this again. He's got at least 81,000 troops, so 41,000. That's about the amount of soldiers that he did land into Germany earlier. That's a huge success. Looking at Sweden, it looks like the Swedish forces continue to react to just a few of our scouts kind of sitting in some of these other areas. We got 4,000 here. You've got 15,000 troops here with a level 9, a 9-star Lawrence of Arabia, which would have provided massive boosts. I think there's about an additional 5,000 to 10,000 troops in both of these provinces as well. So outside of the 55,000 troops that Sweden landed and is already putting some great pressure with this operation, he's got at least another 65,000 troops just sitting in Sweden, not helping the team. Britain is not helping the team. Sweden is not helping the team. So we have a clear advantage on the front here. Let's bust out our favorite tool here, which is a little clunky. I think they changed it up. Looks like they changed it up a little bit. I thought everything was here on the left, but regardless, let's utilize our trusty little tool here and take a look at the front. We have this existing border at the moment, roughly. You have the German forces on the front line. You have the Austrian forces, which have been on the front line and have since started to collapse. And you have the Russian forces, which are putting pressure a little bit here in the south, a little bit here in this area, and are reinforcing the Austrian front. You have a few soldiers from Britain and Sweden that have kind of landed and started reinforcing these areas. But for the most part, you have a significant amount of troops sitting in the British Isles, sitting in Sweden, whereas you don't have this issue with Morocco. Morocco has sent all of his forces, quite literally all of his forces outside of the ones that are kind of spawning and being produced now, over to assist the Turks. Turkey's putting pressure on Austria. Italy's putting pressure on Austria, and Austria has essentially collapsed. In Austria has essentially collapsed, and it will be marked by the collapse once this province of Vienna, his capital, falls. And if you've enjoyed the series and you'd like to see more, we always appreciate a like, comment, share. And with that, we'll see you all on the next one.